some of these state regulations, some of these town regulations are like an expansion of a pig pen, just to transport a pig, a hog. They have to expand it out by 2 inches miraculously because some politician in some suit somewhere in the city said, now you have to do this. Now they have to, if they're a hog farmer, they have to now sit there and expand and do all these changes that it's a huge cost to them. And nobody actually said, hey, does this actually benefit it? What is the rationale for this? What is the purpose of this? They never do this onto the farmers. And so I think a lot of people, you should go out to a farm and actually see how hard these men and women work, how hard their children work, and what all goes into their day-to-day lives before trying to make these broad sweeping ideas that say, hey, this would fix our food supply. Because like Brian said, 2% of our country is the one that feeds the rest of us. And I'm telling you, if you start pushing them out, you're going to be beating each other up for apples. And I know this is factual because you beat the shit out of each other in parking lots over toilet paper because you couldn't figure out how to fucking make that shit last.
And Brian wanted to jump in, and I'll just say, like, you can look at the input increase cost over the last, 10 years, and then you'll notice that it went drastically up during COVID when we were having supply chain issues, and and then other reasons. But that hasn't gone down, but the corn price has drastically dropped, right? So when you have situations like that, you're just not making money. And Brian and I talk a lot about this, and I'm, in the farming side and the equipment side, and equipment is down, 40% nationwide in terms of sales. And I mean, the price of combines right now, a small average one that would be $550,000 is now $750,000. And people can't afford that because they're not making any money because the corn prices are so low. So it's very complex. And I just have to stand up when I think people are saying that people, the farmers are just taking extra profit because they're not. And I care about farmers. But Brian, please.
I was just going to say, some people might say, well, why would you even farm if you're farming it for a loss this year? And that's because if I did farm it, it'd be an even bigger loss. So that's the biggest thing. I'd lose $30 an acre instead of $5. And that's what we're trying to pencil in to this whole thing. And yeah, I mean, it's been 18-hour weeks this week. I know there's other people that put in work too, but when you have, especially livestock, you can't just turn the key off at the end of the day and walk away. You have to take care of the livestock. And it's not just the row crop side. I know there's a lot of row crops that go into the animal agriculture in America, but there's people so far removed that even people in my small town of less than 300 people.
I got a question for you, Brian. Because Brad mentioned people in suits making these regulations. Is there any chance that these people, oh shit, he's on the fucking phone. Well, anybody else who's in ag, I'm just curious because I know, like, when you look at Amazon and Walmart, like these corporations that, squeeze out the mom and pop organizations, like they were all for legislating a higher minimum wage, around 18 to 20 bucks an hour. Not because they gave a fuck about their employees, but they knew the mom and pops couldn't pay that much, and that would just further squeeze out the competition and give them more coverage as far as taking over certain industries. Is the same thing happening in agriculture? Maybe are there lobbyists for these bigger conglomerate corporations that are buying up all this farmland and buying up these mom and pop farmlands and things like that to add to their corporate enterprise? Are some of these people responsible for making it regulations heavy, knowing that the average mom and pop farmer can't afford these, but their multi-billion dollar corporations can?
I know that in the ag industry, especially the meat industry, there's been a big shift. So I ran a company. We did massive structures for a lot of these people, and this big push that they're doing, especially in beef, I'm out of it now, but at that point there was a massive push to have these large lots, and it was driving the prices down. Walmart was getting, the big corporations were getting involved into this. This hurts the small guy. But there's a lot that, listening to this, I grew up in the Midwest, so Iowa, South Dakota, Minnesota, Nebraska, that's the area we served, that's the area I grew up in. But seeing how, I love it when people want to talk about, they think these farmers are getting these profits like they were just saying. they'll take the $5 an acre loss over the $30 an acre loss. They don't understand that they got to pay for crop insurance, and then when it gets flooded out, do they really recoup? Well, okay, they got to replant. Well, a few years ago, the people that are farming on here would be able to explain it more. You couldn't get seed to replant. There was a shortage, so now you're out. It's a very different world in farming than it is in everything else. The cost, and they can talk to you to this, it's probably very different, but to hook into the GPS and to do some of that stuff, systems are $50,000 just to connect to. The dollar amount that these farmers got to put into what they do is insane. There's no way, like if I decided I wanted to farm, there's absolutely no way that I could get the money to do it. Farmland went from about $2,000 an acre to, at that point that the family sold out theirs, it was $14,000 an acre. Try to come up with enough land to afford to pay for your equipment alone, and look at the value in that. And then you got your inputs. So big corporations, yes, when I looked at the big farmers, they were buying land, and they could make it work a little easier than the small guy. But the small guy owns far more land. It is more valuable to our system than the big farmer is.
Well, in Core, my parents are farmers. In Core, my father was looking at 11 acres to buy right beside our property, which we own 110 acres, and 11 acres for $275,000. That's like close to like $25,000 per acre. Like that's where like these small farmers, we don't have the money to again re-up these equipment. And then when we had the seed shortage, there was deals, backhand deals without a doubt going to your larger conglomerates of like Tyson and Reynolds, which is near us, where it's just the small farmers couldn't get anything because we weren't part of those deals. And that's what's going on with so many things. They're not just the government subsidies, I believe, that these large corporations are getting. Again, I'm not in it. My parents are, and all I hear is from them. But, they go to something called Protect the Harvest every single year, which is like a nonprofit that helps farmers. And this has been going on for 20 years now, which is just that small farmers are slowly being forced out by government regulations that aren't being put on these corporations, that were held to a different standard. And then, on top of that, we are required to have these insurances, have these licenses that, again, these larger corporations don't have to deal with. And then they also play into each other of we're going to get better deals to this corporation, with seed and everything, or even feed with, cows. This just happens all the time. So.
Well, another thing is people want to talk about the impact. Somebody brought this up earlier. I got it right as they were talking about it. But it seems like we're okay saying that we'll let these guys come across the border and work for less, but we want to have this high minimum wage for a standard of living. This goes for everything. Why are we doing any trading even with someone who is allowing basically a slave wage? We as a country have made a standard. If you can't meet it, Nike hired somebody to go into their facilities. And I'm bringing that up just as an example of what we do as Americans. So they said, "Oh, we're gonna hit the certain standards." So they went in and they're like, "Yeah, you don't hit the standards." So they moved their plants. This kept happening until they had no place else to go, and they just fired the firm that was doing it because we can't meet the standards, right? Well, here in America, it's the same thing. I had a builder that bought tons of buildings from us, and I show up, we're changing out a window. Can you bring a window? It's a $700 window. I'm not leaving that place without the other window. I said, I had the freedom. I said, I'll just drive it down. Don't worry. I can do my work on the phone. I drive there. I get there. He used to boast about his staff. They were farmers. All his builders. Been with him, the shortest was 17 years. So in 17 years, what do you think he was paying those guys? $25 an hour, right? But guess what? All of a sudden I show up and there's not a single person there that can speak English. He was gone at the time. I can't leave a $700 window not bringing back the other window. Sorry, you just don't drop $1,000 off, right? So I'm sorry, I go back. He calls me, we have a conversation about it. He could no longer compete against the other builders that were coming in and paying those guys $12 an hour. See, this is what happens, is people think they're just picking vegetables. Okay, BS. They're getting involved in the trades. Here in South Florida, they're taking over the industries, taking care of lawn care, a lot of these things. they're going to come in and they're good. Their aspirations are big. But what we need to do is we got to make sure that we're doing the right thing, because you have to protect the system at play or it'll crash. If you ever get a chance, I don't remember the exact name of it, but if you just type in on YouTube, Gumball Refugee, World Bank data shows us how it works. We think we're doing something by helping people. Watch that video. It's not political. It is just on the numbers. And you'll see that by opening our borders, all you're doing is breaking our system and doing less to improve poverty.
Yeah, and getting it back to the immigration topic, I think the meatpacking thing came up about the raid in Omaha, I believe. And I mean, I don't understand anyone who would want undocumented people to be working in meatpacking plants. Like, it is a dangerous job. It's very tricky. You have no recourse if you don't have documentation. There are big machines. There are slippery floors, and it's just. I like a lot what KK said, because once we fix this issue, then you can have, people who do want to come in.
Funny thing about that Nebraska thing, a lot of these people saying, we can solve the problem by going to the electronic checks. All of those people that they found had fake electronic documentation through the E-Verify. So that's what the meatpacking plant used, and they still were given bad documentation, and that's part of why the raid was handled or taken forth in Nebraska's meatpacking facility.
I just posted the link in there for that video I just sent, but in that, when I was hiring staff, it didn't matter if I knew that someone was illegal. I had been told by people. It doesn't matter if the state of Minnesota came in to sit down with me before my doors opened up and explained to me what I was required to do. So basically, I had an I-9. I have them fill it out. I photocopy an ID, and I get it to them, and then I let them deal with it. And so this is where the shortcomings in that system are. Because
I want to go back to this though. I wouldn't think of that as a flaw. If somebody could use fraudulent information for E-Verify, once that's investigated, the mere fact that they've submitted fraudulent information, that is a crime, and so then you can punish that. So E-Verify, even when people are submitting falsified documents, it's actually work.
And then if I could just piggyback on what Mo said, going back to the gentleman before talking about how he got the information, he filled out an I-9, and then he got a copy of the ID. Just if you feel comfortable saying, sir, what type of IDs did you review? And since presumably you reviewed a shitload, did you ever submit a copy of an ID with the I-9 to the government when you and your brain knew it was a bullshit ID? If you feel comfortable saying.
Yep, and that's why the state came in before I opened to sit down and walk me through exactly what I was required to do. They came in unannounced, and it was fine. They were in the area. I had no problem with it, And she sat down and simply explained that I don't have to even try to validate it. If they bring it in and get it to me, I literally would take that. If they had any other identification card, immigration card, I was to photocopy the two of them together and then submit it, and not to spend a minute of my time trying to decipher it. So this is, as the training of the state literally coming in and telling me. So no, you could tell it because other people there would talk about it. But no, I would just have to submit their application with the I-9 form. It was very simple. They just didn't want us as businesses to be getting involved into trying to determine and then being held liable. So they wanted us to understand that they show it, it's on them. And as I believe it was Roger or whatever was saying, the burden falls back on them, not me as the employer. So that's kind of where you look at it. You could be a little skeptical, and you just go. And in the area that I was at, it was a very, very strong area for a lot of illegal immigration. We had the meatpacking plants continuously getting raided. It was one of the largest places in the country for, hog confinements, and so there's a lot of that area. So they do a lot of that to kind of protect small businesses in the rural areas. So that's kind of it. You have your hesitant, you have your thoughts. You can look at an idea and say this looks really shady, but no, just do it.
Let me just say, I appreciate your transparency.
Yeah, I think the importance of requiring documentation, it extends outside of just this issue. I was listening to Elon Musk talk about some of the Doge requirements that they were putting on entities that were requesting federal funding, where all they did was change the requirement where you had to, if you were requesting government funding, you had to present a receipt. And then all of a sudden, entities that were requesting tons of federal funding, once that requirement went in, they wouldn't submit a single thing anymore because either they didn't have the receipt or they knew they were full of shit. And so just simply having these guardrails and creating a process where people have to present a paper trail of what they're doing, because if you then falsely report something, then that's a crime. And so I think this is the way to go. I think this is we're a nation of law.
Just to touch on the topic, is like, are we going too far, as a country? Well, we have to look back, and what's the root of the problem? Is we didn't do what we were supposed to, which is, like Roger said, uphold the law. And I'm sorry, any politician, any law enforcement officer that violates their duty to uphold the law, there should be no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They should be removed from their position, because you're taking an oath. We're expecting our law enforcement officers, our politicians, to be held to a higher standard. But if you look, they're held to a lower standard at every cost. Sexual harassment, taxpayer, they stay in their position because once they come to a settlement, the taxpayer pays for that. If it were you and I, we would lose our job, potentially go to jail, get sued, right? This doesn't happen to them. Everybody's above the law. And the fact is that we had an administration that did not, I don't want to even get political, but we just look at the numbers, did zero to uphold that border. Trump wasn't even in office that morning. They said that the border encounters were damn near zero because they just knew what was coming. So when people understood they're upholding the law now, it stopped. So we can talk about the cost of it. Is it right? All this stuff, but we need to start holding people accountable for failures that lead to these problems. I mean, they're saying that we've got over 1,000 people from Iran here that they're concerned about. During the Biden administration, Department of Homeland Security raised the terror threat to the highest level ever for us here at home domestically. That was then. That's not Trump's Department of Homeland Security that did it. That was Biden's. So we know what's here, and it's only here because we didn't do our job, and now we're doing the job, and everybody wants to say, well, that's going too far. I disagree. Like Roger just said, we're a nation of laws. Guess what? Uphold the law. We're all accountable for that. They don't get to choose in your neighborhood. Well, we're not going to go ahead. We're not going to write up anybody for selling drugs anymore just because everybody's doing it, right? No, they still arrest people for it. You can't let some people break the law about it, and then others, get away with it.
To also include, Corey, there's a lot of illegals that come over. They've learned how to game the system. And when the system doesn't uphold the structure of what the laws are stood for, then everyone's going to come over to take advantage of it. To include, it's profitable for other countries. For example, Mexico, if the migrants would come entering Mexico, they said that they're going to the southern U.S. border, they would let them in. No problems, okay. But then on the other hand, they knew okay, these people have some money, so along their so-called, caravan trail to get to the border, they would provide food stations, water stations. And I didn't believe it until there's this travel blogger that I follow, and he did the actual caravan route. He's like, yeah, the government set up, okay, you can rest here. Here's water stations here, and he videographed all of it, and it's on his blog. I'll try to find the video blog for it. So, because Mexico knows they're going to make some money. They're not going to stay in too long, and there'll be U.S. problems. So they gave the entire system to other people's business.
They're so good at it. I had a gentleman that I found out after our incident with him that he had done it to 3 other employers, and went in, had a knee injury. I went with him, took him to the hospital, went back for an evaluation and the legal right to be a representative for the company, blah, blah, blah. The doctor's telling him, we did the scan. Here it is. Show me there is no damage. No, it's bad. It's swollen. Finally, the doctor was just looking. He looks at me and he goes, look at his 2 knees. His one's swollen. And I was just like, I'm no doctor, but it doesn't look swollen to me. He goes, there is no swelling. We would see it. This guy had the doctors literally explaining there was no injury to his knee. He gamed them, got a settlement. We were forced to hire him. I had my secretary get to the office early. I told him, you come into my office, don't go on the plant floor. He came out on the plant floor. Luckily, we had cameras everywhere. I told him I was letting it go. And then he told me immediately, I hurt my knee again. I tried pushing a cart. I already looked at the film. I didn't start talking to him when I got into that office. This guy did it again. And what did the state do? Got a settlement out of the deal. This guy was doing this routinely, yet we had witnesses, many witnesses in this small town. It's a small town, a couple thousand people that would see him going running, playing soccer, doing these other things, but he couldn't work. They learned to game the system. And it's not immigrants, it's people in general that can learn to game the system, and others that have a genuine issue can't get help, can't get disability, and it's how they learn to game it, I have no idea. But there's a lot of changes that need to happen. And I don't know who's just talking about Doge, but there needs to be receipts. There has to be. And if there's not, there's just no, I'm sorry. If doctors are saying this isn't happening, this is just, we got to start doing a better job all the way around.
I can't wait for AI and robotics to replace some of these jobs. So then the people that say that, Americans don't want to pay, more for their food. Okay, great. We'll get them lower costs, but it's going to cost jobs.
Absolutely. In the dairy industry, we'll just look at that one. The buildings that we build, very different. Used to have they had big carousels. That's how they first did it. The cows walk in, they get their little food, they get milked. It's a great little system, right? But now, it's all in ear tags. A cow can try to walk back in again. It doesn't get its treats. It doesn't get milked again. But they literally have it. Looks like a little mini car wash. Comes up, washes the udders. The cow walks in. It pushes the cow out. Guess what? Next cow comes in, and they want to be in there getting milk because they get a little treat. And it is 100% automated. You do not need anybody there. And as you get to watch the systems, they're there. And they keep people employed to keep people employed. Yes, and sometimes you don't have that initial big investment. But in the long run, you're right. The jobs are gone. When they wanted to raise minimum wage, I remember when that first came up, they wanted to raise minimum wage to like $15 an hour. And when that push came, there was some meeting of a bunch of all the fast food industry people is in Europe. They put out on the news a little video of from freezer to customer, completely delivered, their burger, their order, everything without a single person there. And what's the difference? The pickle's placed in exactly the right place every time. There's exactly 0.45 ounces of mustard. There's exactly whatever of ketchup. Everything's the same. The consistency is there. Why did they put that out? You can raise the wage. Go ahead and raise the wages. Our bottom line is we're here to make money. And if we can't make money, we'll go to automation. It's either jobs, or whatever. But you look at the people, if you look at the people that are most affected by raising minimum wage, it's low-income earners. As a matter of fact, in the fast food industry, single black mothers were the number one most impacted people to lose their job because of that wage hike. But we want to ignore those little facts when we talk about, hey, someone's out there really trying to make it. Hell, I had a guy who was going to lose he came to me and he said he's going to have to put in his 2 weeks. I was like, why? We're working like 72 hours a week. Well, yeah, he had 4 kids. He had help, for assistance for, he had SNAP or whatever, the food assistance he had, living and then insurance. Well, by the time it all came said and done, what he was going to end up paying, and once he lost everything, he was going to be making, without figuring in time and a half, just straight up on it, $3 an hour. He's killing himself for that wage. So instead of finding a system that helps people get on their feet, and maybe it weans them off of the system, so to speak, so they can build up a savings account. Maybe we put some accountabilities in. No, we just cut it. So what's the best option to do? Well, I just have to quit my job. And until we decide we have to come up with a better means. So what if we have to pay them for a little while to help build up that safety net, to help get a savings account and emergency fund? I would much rather do that than say live on the system continually. Politicians never look at that. Why? Because they've never dealt with it. They haven't had an employee that wanted to dig himself out from the bottom. And you could see the emotion in his eyes, the tears in his eyes welling up when I couldn't help solve it. I said, we'll be fine. I'll work this out for you. No, the numbers don't work.
Are you daft? Billionaires live off the system every fucking day of our lives. I don't understand why you're
We're not talking about billionaires and fucking system.
Wait, hold on. Water, mute up for a second. I'm going to help you out here. Corey, you were done speaking. He piped
The
in,
only fucking
and
person there
why don't
that
we
was
hear what he has to say without interrupting him? There's this weird tendency that people have on this app where it's like if somebody challenges them, they are very quick to do their pushback. Let's get his complete thought out, which is probably going to be stupid, and then you can go ahead and respond. Go ahead.
It was just that, responding to a stupid statement. Yeah, you're right. It's probably going to sound stupid what I have to say. Stupid is as stupid does, right, Point?
Okay, so if I understand you correctly, Water, your evidence that millionaires live off the system is that stupid is as stupid does. Is that accurate?
My response to you is stupid is as stupid does. The fact that you're complaining about the poor living off of the system while we have the rich hemorrhaging this country, funding the wars, not fighting them. It doesn't make any sense.
Water, I don't know what conversation you're talking about, but I never even alluded to that. That was other people talking. I simply listened to your comment, which you said the prior speaker was stupid. Then you stated, we all know that millionaires live off the system, and you were interrupted. Roger then told the gentleman not to interrupt you, give you an opportunity to get your point out, which is probably stupid. And all I've heard you say so far to back up that millionaires live off the system is stupid does. Maybe you have some other specific reasons why you think millionaires live off the system. I'd love to.
No, you assuming my answer ahead of time and speaking for me was what I was responding to. So without the narrative, simply put, universal basic income is necessary to get out of this mess.
All right. Let's concentrate on that. Everybody in the country should be paid exactly the same wage. That's how hang on. That's how I define a universal income. So, if you were president, if you had your hand on the button, how much money should each person get? No more, no less.
For starters,
basic income.
For starters, yes, that's right. Without it, all the other benefits included, everybody still receives your benefits. $4,000 minimum.
So you're saying a minimum
Americans,
every.
And then all veterans gets bumped up to $8,000. This is for starters. We don't know where the economy is going to be in the next year, not even the next 5 years, let alone 5 or 10. But we must address it as the inflation comes at us because it's going to come.
Water.
It's going to come at us. It's going to come at us in full force as automation is already here. So
Water, I have a question for you.
I understand you have a question. I still have
let me ask you one question first. Your thoughts enough. Just a follow-up question. Since you endorsed that, how much more would you be willing to pay each year in your tax dollars to make that happen? How much would you be willing?
as much as need be.
Okay, got it.
Go ahead, Mo.
Yeah, Water, I have a question for you. You started this before you went into the UBI thing that you probably don't even understand.